blood isn't always red. The color can vary, and sometimes it can confuse you, or sometimes it can just freak you out. Hi ladies, my name is Rachel from The Healthy Woman, and in today's video we'll be talking about the different period blood colors, some of the myths that surround them, and what, if anything, they tell you about your overall health. But before we go right into the video, let me put this out there. This video is strictly for educational purposes, and I'm not a medical doctor or even a medical practitioner, so you should take what I say with a pinch of salt. So if you're feeling a type of way from your period, you should speak to a professional, to your doctor, and get yourself treated. And with that, let's begin the video. Okay, so let's start with the first period color, black. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you before. You go to the toilet, you want to change your pad or your tampon, and then you pull down your knickers, and then sitting there on your pad is this black thing, or you might see that there's a black gel clinging on for their dear life at the end of your tampon. It can be a bit alarming if you've never seen it before. I mean, it can be scary, right? Because you're just like, did that just come out of me? Actually, that jelly-like substance that you're seeing is just some old blood that's been hanging around in the vagina. And it's just had a chance to clot, going from liquid state to a more jelly state. Or it's the lining of your uterus, the endometrium, being shedded. During your period, you are more likely to see this if you're somebody that suffers from heavy periods, because the endometrium can kind of break away in chunks. And you can see this, and if you pick it up and rub it between tissues, you realize that it's not actually black, it's just a really deep red. It's okay to pick it up, it's not disgusting, and you can pick it up. You can have a look, I mean, it came out from you, so it's not disgusting. So the other time that you can see black period blood is towards the end of your period, when the blood is taking its time, taking its sweet time to come out of the vagina. The flow is slow, it's lighter red, and it just means that the blood has gotten the chance to become oxidized and turn black. Let's talk about some of the myths that I've heard about black period blood. Some people say that it means that there's a blockage in the vagina. So black period blood doesn't necessarily indicate that there's a blockage in your vagina. Medical causes of blockage in the vagina are much more likely to give you an absence of period or even painful period. The most likely thing that can be blocking the vagina is a forgotten tampon, but a forgotten tampon doesn't change the color of your period blood. It's much more likely to give you a foul-smelling vaginal discharge. Black period blood is really anything to worry about. But if you notice that the clots are particularly large, or you're starting to feel tired during your period or lethargic, then you need to speak to your doctor. Let's move on to the next period color, the brown period. The brown period blood is just blood that's been oxidized, and you will commonly see this at the beginning or at the end of your period, when the flow is quite light and the blood is taking its time to come out of the vagina. So it's had its chance to combine with oxygen and then become oxidized. It is similar to when you leave nail outside and then it becomes rusty. The other time that you see brown period blood is when you first wake up in the morning, because you spend quite a long period of time laying flat on your back. The blood has had a chance to pull in the vagina and to connect. And then when you go to the toilet, you might notice that you have some brown blood. Brown blood can be due to your normal period. It can also be due to bleeding after sex, because you get cuts or tiny scrapes from friction on the vagina. It can also be due to spots in between your periods and so many other causes. So essentially what I'm saying is that it doesn't tell you anything about the cause of the bleeding. It just tells you that there is light blood and that it's slow enough for the blood to have a chance to become oxidized and turn brown. The other myth I have heard about brown period is that it is old blood from your previous month's period. The uterus is like an upside down pear, right? It's smooth, it has curves, and the vagina is being constantly washed out with the vaginal discharge and cervical fluid. In normal anatomy, there isn't anywhere for the blood to go and kind of hide, and for a month, and then think, oh, it's time for me to come out, it's the next period. It doesn't work like that. The other myth that I've heard is that eating iron-rich food is going to make your period blood darker. Now, even if this were to happen on some molecular level, right, you are unlikely to be able to detect a change in the color of your period blood. Remember, periods are not disgusting. Okay, so let's move on to a color that you are more familiar with. The red. Everyone is familiar with the red period blood. And you typically see this at the beginning or maybe at the end of your period. And it just means that the blood is coming out at a steady rate. It's not slow and it hasn't had chance to become oxidized. I would say that one of the most common myths I see about red blood is that because it's red, it's completely normal. And it's like, yeah, if your period is red, then it's healthy. So it's not that this is a myth. It's just that it can lead you into a false sense of security. The problem with this is that there are other causes of red bleeding that can be mistaken for your period. Bleeding from a cervical pop can be red. Bleeding in between your periods, which has different causes, can also be red. Bleeding after sex, which can be due to an STI or bleeding from an ectopic pregnancy, can also be red. So there are two lessons I want you to take away here. Not every vaginal bleeding is a period, and bright red bleeding from the vagina doesn't necessarily tell you that the bleeding that you're seeing is normal. So that's why if you have any concerns whatsoever, you should be talking to your doctor. Let's move on to the next period color, the pink period. This can happen if the flow is really light. So for example, at the beginning of your period, and it means that the blood is being diluted by the vaginal discharge or cervical fluid. Some of the myths that I've heard about pink period blood is that it means that you are low in estrogen. Being low in estrogen is much more likely to cause your period to stop or become erratic than to change the color of the period to being pink. Also, having high estrogen, such as when you're on a combined oral contraceptive pill, can actually make your flow lighter, which means that the blood will come out looking pink. Because it's diluted or dark, because it's oxidized. So essentially, what I'm saying is that your period blood can be pink whether you have low estrogen or high estrogen or normal estrogen. Okay, so there's this particular myth that period blood can be purple. Human blood is typically red, and that's because of the heme component of the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. Also, another myth that I've heard about is that period blood can be gray. You shouldn't be having gray period blood. You can, however, have gray vaginal discharge, which can sometimes be a sign of bacterial vaginosis. Okay, so another myth that I see or that I've heard is that water period blood means that you are anemic. Actually, in anemic, the color of the blood doesn't change. If you have watery looking period blood, it's much likely to be because it's been diluted by vaginal discharge or cervical fluid. Now, one of the biggest myths that I've heard is that the color of your period tells you something about your overall health. The color can't tell you anything about your overall health because it can mean so many different things. It's the flow rate, the exposure to oxygen, and whether the blood has been diluted that's going to determine the color of your period blood. If the flow rate is quick, then the blood will exit the vagina quicker, and you see this as bright red. If the flow rate is slower, then you have more chance to combine with oxygen and to be oxidized, and you can either see it as dark red or brown or sometimes black. If it's diluted by cervical fluid or vaginal discharge, and it may come out pink, so you can see that most of the period blood colors can be normal, but that doesn't mean that you should diagnose yourself if you've got any concerns about your period. Please see your doctor irrespective of the color. Please see your doctor if you have irregular, painful, or heavy period, bleeding in between your period, or seeing blood after sex or after menopause, and also any sort of bleeding during pregnancy. Thank you for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to become a member of my family. And while you're at it, hit that post notification bell so that YouTube personally notifies you every time I drop a similar video just like this. Let me know in the comment section if you've had any of this color of period blood before, and if somebody told you that, oh, this could mean this and this could mean that, but I just told you that it won't mean what they said it should mean. I'll be in the comment section reading about your experiences with period blood. And with that, I'll tell you, remember, your health is your wealth. Bye guys, see you in my next video.